Professor Wolff, last time we spoke, this was before now the largest strike in America, 10,000 workers with John Deere. And we were kind of just going down the list that I would say uh, probably the most prevalent and most, I would say the largest strike season we've had probably in over a decade in America. Labor has kind of been in hibernation. You made the point that this is good, but we have a long way to go because obviously labor has been decimated. Um, just your preliminary thoughts with John Deere, because that's obviously a large company. 10,000 workers is a pretty large number. This is going on plants in Iowa, Illinois, as well as other areas. Um, were you surprised by this? And what's your initial thoughts on now the John Deere strike?
In no way surprised. You're right. It is a uptick in the labor militancy. There's no denying it. This summer we saw it at first at Nabisco, then we saw it at the Kellogg, the people who make the breakfast cereal, and all of the rest. Now John Deere. We have many more writers and other workers in Hollywood that have voted 98% to go out on strike against the big studios there that make films and TV shows. And we have more and more coming up in the months ahead. I think the best way to understand it is to put it together with another statistic that you may have already spoken about. The government of the United States keeps a statistic called the quit rate. It's the rate at which workers quit their jobs, not fired by anybody, not laid off because the company can't persist, but they quit. There's a perfectly good job that they have, but it isn't good enough. And so they leave. For me, quitting your job, especially in times like these, is as powerful an act as going on strike. If you put together, we have quit rate at a greater rate than ever before in American history. It's been kept for many years. We've never seen the millions of people that are quitting, coupled together with the now tens and pretty soon hundreds of thousands that will be out on strike. What these two statistics are both telling us is that the American working class, the vast majority of Americans who are employees, not employers, are sick and tired of the conditions of their work, of the salaries and wages they get, and of the balance between work and the rest of your life as a spouse, your life as a child, your life as a parent. What in Europe is called work-life balance. It's way out of balance. Here, we don't have in the United States anything like the accommodation to our lives at our workplace that our European fellow working people have. And it's now all come to a head. And sometimes I wonder, as I'm sure you do, whether the last 18 months, when we've been threatened by the worst public health failure in our history, the pandemic, whether that maybe hasn't shaken us up in some psychic way, so that going back to that job is teaching us, wait a minute, life is short, life is precious. Do I really want to accept what this employer is dishing out in the way of job, pay, work conditions, and everything else? And one last point. I'm an economist, so I try to ask the question, what might be going on here? And this is the answer I would offer. Over the last 18 months, many employers had a hard time. They shut down for a while, their business fell away, their workers wouldn't come to work for fear of getting COVID, et cetera, et cetera. So they lost out. There are exceptions, but many of them lost out. And now that things look like hopefully they're coming back, they want to recoup. They want to make up for the losses they just went through, which I understand. So they're trying to squeeze a bit more profit out of their businesses than they otherwise might have tried to do had they not had the last 18 months of difficulty. So they are maybe bringing 3 workers back for that job that before they had four. Or maybe they're not, redeveloping the toilet, or maybe they're not air conditioning quite as well as they did before, fill in the blank, and they're maybe squeezing. And so the workers are coming back because they too, as workers, have to recoup what the 18 months cost them. But they can't because they're not in a position to do it. So they're confronted with all of this, bitter that they're being extra squeezed when they would like a little accommodation. And then the final cherry on this unwanted ice cream sundae, inflation. So if you're not making 6 to 7% more this October than you did last, you can't even afford now what you were able to afford a year ago. So on top of everything else, you're discovering what you can't afford to buy anymore. And you know something? It's too much. And the too much is what makes workers quit and what makes workers strike. It's never the detail of a few pennies more. Not that that isn't important, it is, but it's never enough. There has to be a sense in a working person, I'm not going to be treated this way anymore. And that's what you're seeing. And if I could give a warning to the employer minority that watches your program, which I hope is numerous.
It's a minority.
But that employer minority, here's a word of warning. Be very careful. You are pushing the American working class to a tipping point you don't want to see the other side of it, but you are pushing in that direction. Be very careful. My guess is you will be very sorry if you pursue what you are doing now.